How to Write a Tax-Efficient Will by Deborah Bowers, Chapter 11, Setting Up Trust. Jane was delighted that they had finished getting their wills in place to make provision for the children should anything happen to her or Edward. She was still worried about the children inheriting their pension pots, death in service and life insurance at 18, as those funds were likely to be large. Jane had left her employment to look after the children, and her death in service was no longer active, as she had left her employment with the supermarket. She still had her pension pot and life insurance. Edward still enjoyed all three benefits. They had informed the solicitor that they would decide upon the nomination of those benefits. They agreed that they wanted the children to benefit, but their only concern, should they not be around when the children turned 18, was that the children would have access to large sums of money without the necessary and good sense to manage their finances. They had learned from the solicitor that there were different types of trust funds which they could set up for the benefit of the children. One such trust was a bed trust, which they could use to accumulate the birthday gifts and other resources for the children as they grew up. The fund would be seen as belonging to the children, with them as the parents managing the fund until such time that the children were 18 years old. The solicitor had explained that they could use such a trust to make use of their annual allowances and potentially exempt transfers to save funds for the children till their 18th birthdays, thereby ensuring that they had some funds but not the entire estate at age 18, should they pass before the 18th birthday of the children. He had explained the different types of trusts were governed by different rules, some having fees charged on an item entering the trust 20%, items exiting the trust 4.2%, and the 10-year anniversary charge. They wanted to decide upon which of these trusts they might use, how best to protect the interests of the children by using a trust. Jane and Edward went over the main types of trust again. They had been bare trusts, such as savings accounts for the children, bereaved minors trusts, or creation of statute, should they pass before the 18th birthday of the children. Disabled trusts, to make provision for a disabled child. 18 to 25-year trust, to allow the children to inherit at an age above 18 but not older than 25. Relevant property trust, where the funds would be treated as belonging to the trust, not the children. Usually used to make generational provisions for wealthy families and administered as a discretionary trust, giving the children no claim on the trust property, but allowing them to be benefited at the discretion of the trustees. Discretionary trust, trustees decide who to benefit. Immediate post-death interest, where someone gains an interest in something, such as a life interest, as soon as the testator or person who made the will dies. Charitable trust, to benefit a cause. Of all these trusts, they wanted to consider the bed trust for the children and the relevant property trust, where the assets in the trust would be treated as not forming part of their estate. If the sums of money in the life insurance, pension pots, and death in service were large, they could set up such trusts and nominate it to receive those sums. The sums would be used for the benefit of the children by the trustees, and they would not have to worry about the age of the children, thus protecting them and their generations going forward. They considered the amounts of money that they could put into their chosen trust and whether they would want their children to become entitled at the age of 18 years. Considering the nil rate ban, each of them could place $325,000 aside for the children, giving them a total of $650,000, and once they survive 7 years, those funds would no longer fall into their estate but would become exempt from inheritance tax. Jane and Edward also considered making use of their annual allowance of $3,000 each. As they only had 2 children, they could give each child $3,000 each year into their account. This would be an exempt transfer for inheritance tax purposes. If they were to do this every year until the children were 18, they could save a considerable sum for them, as much as $700,000 to $800,000 or more for each child, having not taken into account small gifts from family and friends. Neither had they taken into account the pension pot, the death in service, or the life insurance, which the children would benefit from should they pass before the children were 18 years old. They wanted to know what would happen should they pass within 7 years of transferring to the trust the nil rate band of $325,000 into the trust, or passing within 7 years of making any gift into the trust in excess of their nil rate band. This would give them a better understanding of the possible outcomes. It was explained as follows. More than 3, less than 4, 32%, more than 4, less than 5, 24%, more than 5, less than 6, 16%, more than 7, less than 7, 8%, and 7 years, 0%. If they decided upon a relevant property trust, they could put all or some of their assets in there to be managed as a discretionary trust with the children as the beneficiaries. The children would have no entitlement to the trust funds. Jane and Edward would continue to exercise the role of trustees and would apply funds to the children as and when they saw fit as the children grew. This would protect the children from creditors, bad marriages, gambling habits, or gold diggers. Jane could see that their life was taking off nicely and believed that such a trust should be given due consideration. If she and Edward were to pass the funds would not be in their estate, as it would be treated as a relevant property trust, with the assets being held on discretionary trust for the children. They had the option of setting up a trust in their lifetime. In the end, Jane and Edward decided to set up separate bed trust funds for each of their children, which they could give them at 18. They considered that as Jane was no longer in employment, they really did not have the funds to gift the children their nil rate band every 7 years. Further, Jane was no longer entitled to death in service, and her pension pot was small as she had left her employment. They decided that they were happy with the will which they had drafted with the solicitor and wanted to wait to see how things would progress for them before deciding upon the need to set up a relevant property trust. They were satisfied that under their wills, the children would only benefit at the age of 25 years, if anything was to happen to them. However, the children would be entitled to any funds which had been saved up for them over the years at the age of 18, as those funds were being saved up as a bed trust. Under their will, they had excluded the provisions of Section 31 of the Trust Act 1935, entitling the children to income and capital at the age of 18, and replaced the provision with a beneficial entitlement at the age of 25 years, when they hoped the children would be more mature and sensible about money. They had considered the powers of trustees and felt satisfied that they had chosen the right people to carry out this role. Jane noted with relief that all this would only come into effect after their passing if they were to pass before the children were 25 years old. She reminded Edward that they could write a letter of wishes to guide their trustees as to how to apply the funds to address the needs of the children in the event that they should pass before the children had arrived at the age of 25 years. The two of them sat down to consider what they could tell the trustees about how the needs of their children should be met. They wanted to document their wishes. In any event, it could serve as a great reminder to them of their vision for the children. Appendix 3. Sample Letter of Wishes. This is a letter which you write to your trustees or guardians or even beneficiaries to tell them what you would love them to do. It is not enforceable, but it enables them to know your expectations. For example, you may wish to tell your guardians where to educate the children. Here is an example. Dear Annie, you have been a wonderful sister and friend, and a shoulder to lean on all these years. The children love and adore you, and you have always treated them as your very own. It is my wish that they will grow up to be adults who will make us both proud. You know that Lisa tends to be a bit more fragile, but I know that she will come into her own someday. It is my hope that they shall both be sent off to St. George's boarding school, where I know that they will be provided with the best of British education. Eric has always spoken about becoming a physician. Do encourage him along that path. I would hope that the trust fund will be big enough to fund his education and help him achieve his goal. Please resist the temptation to buy him a Ferrari at 18. He loves his cars, but he will have to work to buy one with his own cash if it was up to me. Please do not give in to his pleas. Lisa, being the delicate flower that she is, has always enjoyed her ballet and would love to become a professional dancer. Please do your best to get her into the Finest Academy. This area of work is so very competitive and only a few break through financially. I know, however, that her love and passion for the arts will see her through. Jane Doe. Things to consider. If you are interested in setting up trusts for your children, consider carefully the type of trust which would give you the greatest tax saving. It all depends on your net worth. Take into account how the entry, exit, and 10-year charges are calculated and how they may benefit you as opposed to paying 40% inheritance tax. Speak with a financial expert if necessary.